I probably should have left this one on the side of the road. It had missing feet, it had scratches all over it, dents, dings, it was looking a little bit gappy, not to mention dull. But did I leave it on the side of the road? No, because I'm a sucker for potential and this piece definitely had it. Now the fallback when you've got repairs as extensive as this missing feet, some kind of missing detail, is always to paint, but I wanted to try and maintain as close to its original vibe as I could. So come along for the ride while I navigate all of these challenges. My first step was to remove the handles so that I could give the piece a thorough clean down and just look what was hiding underneath those original handles. Gross. I then moved on to some minor repairs. This leg was a little bit wobbly, so I put some glue down, let gravity do its thing so that the glue would actually run down into the join, and then I used bullet head nails to tack it into place. This little leg also had a substantial gap in the front, so I wanted to try and bring that little side detail support of the leg in. So I tried using a quick grip, but it wasn't moving, so I knew I would just have to fill the gap later. To fix the missing foot, I knew that I would have to use something strong like builder's bog, but the problem with builder's bog is that you can't actually hand sculpt it into place. So instead of doing that, I actually created a mold using a hot glue gun. You can see here that I'm applying a liberal amount of glue, including just around the bottom of the foot in the area that I needed to replace on the other foot. You just want to make sure that the glue is thick enough that when you peel it off, it holds its shape and you don't peel it off until it's completely cooled down. This will look messy from the outside, but I guarantee you that you will get the general shape of whatever you are trying to replicate on the inside of this mold. Once I had it filled with builder's bog, I pressed it into place where I wanted it and then I taped it to secure it down even more. While that was setting in place, I moved on to cleaning everything down so that I could start removing that existing finish. For the drawer fronts, I went straight in with 120 grit sandpaper, which I've found is sufficient for removing a failing shellac finish like this piece had. If you have an antique piece and the finish is a little bit more stubborn, you can go in with methylated spirits or acetone to remove it. You could use a carbide scraper prior to sanding, or you could use a chemical-based stripper. I let the foot repair sit for around 15 minutes to make sure that it was really firm and in place before removing the tape and the mold. This is one of those trust the process moments, but as you can see, I have the general shape of the foot and I'm going to come back and clean it up. I used an old sanding disc to remove the excess that had overflown out of the mold before coming back with my rotary tool to refine the shape. I wasn't going for a completely perfect foot here. I wanted there to be some irregularity. After all, this piece is probably around 100 years old, so I just wanted to have that general shape in there and almost give it the illusion of some wear and tear. For the legs and the body of the piece, I used that same 120 grit sandpaper to remove the finish and then dropped back down to an 80 grit sandpaper to see if I could remove the scratch patch up top where it looked like someone had attacked it with a pen. I knew at this point that I would be sanding for days with that 80 grit and my orbital sander, so I opted to get my belt sander out, and let me tell you, it needs to be very unique circumstances for me to get this out because it can be quite aggressive. I chose a 60 grit sanding belt, which does sound quite low, but when you need to get timber off and you need to get it off quickly, this is definitely the way to go. The only drawback with this though is that 60 grit is a very low grit of sandpaper and you have to spend a lot of time coming back up the grades. So I went to 80 grit sandpaper up to 120, I went to 180 and then finished with 240 grit, and I had to spend the time trying to get it smooth again. So it is a bit of a drawback, but no scratches, no stains. Once everything was completely sanded down smooth, it was time to get some color onto this piece. Now, to keep it looking as original as possible, that deeper, richer tone, I chose Fiddy's tinted hard wax oil in the color Rustic Oak. You can see here though that I'm applying to my repaired sections first, and that's so that I could get a little bit of depth of color over that white builder's bog. If I had have gone in and applied to the timber and the repaired section all in one go, there would have been too much variation between the repair and what the tinted hard wax oil was doing to that natural timber. I did 2 pre-coats of the tinted hard wax oil on my little repairs, and then I did 2 coats across the entire piece, so the timber and the little feet. I cleaned up the original brass handles by soaking them in vinegar before scrubbing them down with some steel wool, and then I got them back onto the piece. So guys, just a reminder of where we were, and this is where we are now. It has a beautiful, subtle sheen. That depth of color is amazing, and you guys know that I am not a dark furniture girly, but I can appreciate the beauty in this piece, and it's got some feet that blend well. Look at those handles. Aren't they stunning? They just don't make handles like this anymore. Absolutely love this one, but as always, I would love to know what you guys think of this restoration, so let me know in the comments, is this one a nail or a fail?